everyone, this is Jenny from Spectrum Noir. Today I'm pretty excited because I get to share with you a very special card that I made for my son and his new fiance who just got engaged at Disneyland this past week. So they love Disney and I wanted to do a little princess card for her. So I want to show you how I actually colored her dress and got it to look layered, where each fold of her dress looks like one layer is in front of the other layer. So that's what we're going to focus on today on this card, and we are going to go ahead and get started. So here's Cinderella. Before I get started, quite often what I will do is I try to figure out my color palette that I'm going to use. So what I did is I pulled out a few of my pens that I thought might work and I scribbled it on paper. So I have a BT4, a BT3, a BT2, and a BT1. These two are pretty close together, so I don't think that I'm going to need both of them. So I'm going to go ahead and use the 4, the 3, and the 1. But obviously, if you don't have a 3, I'm sure a 2 would work just fine. So I'm going to go ahead and get started on here. I'm going to start off with my BT4 because I usually start off with my darkest color first. I'm going to turn my little girl upside down because I like to color with the point towards the line. So here I go. I'm going to add in my shading on the back layer. I want it wet enough to where it's still wet when I add my next color. However, I don't want it so wet that it's going to wick into the other layer or the other area right in here. I'm going to go ahead and add some color here because this here is also a back layer. And pull it out just a little bit. Not very far because I want a pretty light colored dress, but I do want to have a little bit of shading there. And now I'm going to go ahead and step down to my BT3, which is right here. Because this is a very large area, I'm going to go ahead and, and use my large nib. A lot of people say they never use their large nib. Well, I do, especially for large areas. You can see it didn't blend very well because my BT4 had already dried. Not a problem. It is a large area. So I'm going to go back and add one more layer in here. If you get a little bit of wicking into the front layer, that's okay. We can cover that up later. You don't want a whole lot, but a little bit would be just fine. Now I'm going to reblend these together. Make sure this is wet, and then I'm going to step down to my BT1 and I'm going to pull it on out towards my highlight. Again, I like to use this big end for these big areas. I change back over to the small nib when I get close to the line. But this is a pretty large area, so don't be afraid to use those large nibs. And now to get the little nitty-gritty parts, I'll go ahead and use the small end. And you can see how I got right up next to the edge. This is still diluting. As long as the ink is wet, it's still diluting, so I don't want to over blend this because then it's going to be over blended. That made sense. You don't want to overwork it because it'll be over blended. Sorry. There you go. So there's the dark part, the first part of our dress. And now I'm going to work on these little ruffles over here, folds. So I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing by adding in my darkest color first. And don't color this one because that's his leg. I made that mistake already once. Okay, there's my darkest color. This is going to go much quicker because the areas are much smaller. Here's my BT3. And now I'm going down to my BT1. And I would do the same thing with this little ruffle over here. My BT4. Whoops, that wasn't BT4. This is my BT4. My BT3, and sometimes you don't have enough room to put all three colors, and that's just fine. On this one, I'm just going to leave my 2 colors. I'm going to define that just a little bit more here. And now I'm going to work on this little piece right here. So I'm going to use my darkest color back here. And I'm going to use a light layer of it on the front part. I don't want it quite as dark as this back layer back here, but I want it darker than the center in here. Here's my 3. And now go down to my 1. And there you go. That's how I got the layering of her dress. You can see it's definitely defined right here, and it gets lighter as it comes out to here. This is actually still wet. If you want it to be a little bit darker, you can add a little bit more of your medium color in there. And then reblend it. I think I like that a little bit better. So anyways, that's how I did my Cinderella dress. I hope you enjoyed it and come back for more tutorials. Have a great day.